What do country music singer Blake Shelton, a freaked out story writer from Nashville, and the nativity scene have in common? You won't figure it out until you hear my guest's beautiful Christmas story. Al Andrews clearly does not live in stress mode. He's the founder and director of Porter's Call, a unique ministry with a meaningful name that goes back to the 5th century.
Yes, it
Al?
is. Yes.
We just have to talk about this first because this
Sure.
is what you do full time.
Yes, it is. It is a ministry to recording artists. I live in Nashville, Tennessee. Where else could you have that?
They're all there.
They're all there.
A lot of them.
I was in a private practice counseling, and we moved there in '97. And after the first year, I realized that a lot of my clients were music, and a lot of them were artists. And artists live a very unique life. You know, from the outside, it looks pretty glamorous, but then you realize they travel a lot. They're away from their families. They're in all sorts of situations. And the more notoriety they get, the less help they can get because they have to become very private. And so I started this Porter's Call a few years ago, about 16 years ago, as a place where artists could come for free and talk about the issues they face.
That word itself, it's monastic.
Yes, it is. It comes from a 5th century monastery when Benedict and a lot of his friends came to faith, and they started one of the first communities, one of the first monasteries, and they wrote rules about how they were going to live, and you can check it out at the library. It's called the Rules of St. Benedict. And there were about 100 rules, and one of them was we're going to pray every 3 hours, we're going to give our money to the poor, we're going to study the Bible like this. And one of the rules, number 66, my wife found that, is inside the gates you shall place a porter. And a porter is described as a wise old man who's finished with his wandering days. And the porter's job was to welcome the sojourners when they knocked on the door. He would call out, the porter's call, "Thanks be to God." And then he'd let people in and help them find the way to what they need. If they needed food, he'd feed them. If they needed a bed, he'd give them a place to sleep. If they need wise counsel, they'd offer wise counsel. So we thought, instead of becoming therapists for artists, we'll become porters. And porters, that way an artist will come in and we'll help them find the way to what they need. And they need lots of different things, but often they need someone to talk with about their lives and the issues they face.
What
So
a
that's what we
beautiful
do.
thing. I mean, as I read this, I thought, as God's kids, his ambassadors on this earth, that's what we should be. We should be porters.
Absolutely.
Whoever he brings our way, whomever, we
Yeah.
should say, thanks be to God. What do you need?
Exactly. It's the welcome, the invitation of the gospel.
Beautiful.
It's welcome in, how can we help? So that's what I get
I
to do.
just love this.
Thank you so much.
Love it.
Yeah.
And if you go online and see the beautiful facility you're in, it's a
Yes.
home, it's not a clinic.
Yeah, it's an old
And,
1870s home, and we
really
welcome
beautiful.
people in every day.
Beautiful ministry, and it's free. Even if you've got a very, very successful, famous musician, which you do have at times, they're blown away by the fact that there's no charge.
It feels like that's what it should be. Yeah.
Well, this is so serene and beautiful and celebratory, but we have to go to a dark night of your soul.
Yes, we do.
What,
Yes,
about
we
4
do.
years ago?
Yeah, about 4 years ago.
What happened?
Well, there's an artist in town in Nashville named Dave Barnes, and you'll know Dave. He wrote the song "God Gave Me You" that Blake Shelton picked up and made famous.
Ding, there's the first clue.
Ding, there's the first
Yeah,
clue.
yeah.
And Dave has a yearly Christmas show in Nashville. He's very popular in the South and really a great singer. And it's a fun Christmas show. About 2,000 people show up every year, and it's a wonderful thing. And he called me one day and said, "Al, I've written a song, a new song for this Christmas show, and I would like for you to write a little story and read it at the Christmas show and introduce my song." And I said, "Well, of course I will. That'd be great."
You have 2 weeks or so
I
to
had
pull that
about
together?
2 weeks, and I didn't think about that. And I went home, and I sat down, and I thought, okay, in 2 weeks, I'm going to be sitting in front of 2,000 people, reading a story that I have not written yet, and it has to be good. You know, it kind of has to be good. And all the rest of the people on the stage are these young, cool musicians, and all of a sudden an old guy gets up and reads a book. And when I thought of the reality of that, I freaked out. Now, you can imagine that, you know. I'm going, oh my gosh, in 2 weeks, this is going to happen.
No pressure.
And I really did. I went, oh my gosh, what did I do? And so I put on my coat, really, and I took a walk down the street. And it was kind of this little cold night where a little snow was coming in. And I took a walk down the street to calm myself down, really. And about a block away, I looked on the left, and there was this nativity scene in the yard.
You're one of your neighbors.
One of my neighbors, and it had been there every year, a ceramic, beautiful thing. And for some reason, I thought, well, maybe I can stop here and just reflect for a minute. And I started looking at this nativity scene, and I looked at it differently. You know how you just pass those by, you know, usually there are so many of them. And I noticed that as I looked at each character, every character was perfect. And it's sort of like this little scene right here. You know, look, Mary is just peaceful and gentle, and as she should be. And Jesus in the hay.
Always smiling.
Always smiling and always going like this. And
yours had a halo.
Yeah, and the
Right.
one that I saw had a halo, and he was like, and Joseph usually has this stare. I love this one because he has this blank stare, but he is all clean. And then I just looked around. The wise men were just neat and shiny, like they'd been to the cleaners. And
Now, why did that bug you so much,
well,
Al?
what I did, I looked at it and I went, you know what? These people are perfect. And I can't relate to perfect people because, I don't know about you, but my life is imperfect. And I just can't relate to perfect people. And
It even bothered you that Mary always, typically, and I brought another one of mine from home. She usually has blue.
yeah, she usually has blue.
It bothered you that
It bothered-
she always has the blue.
Well, she had blue, but what bothered me was that it was clean.
Okay.
And it was bright blue, or so even though she didn't have on blue, but she's
Oh, there's a
clean
bit
and
of
she's
blue in there.
neat. Yeah, a little blue around the back. But I kept looking at all these people and I go, they're perfect, and I can't relate to them at all. And this sounds really bad. I even thought I don't really like them, and that feels like, you know, something that could bring lightning down or something. But you know what I mean. I just go, I don't know if we'd be friends. And when that came to me, I thought, oh my, this is what I need to do. And this is what I need to write about. So I walked back home, I went to my study, and I pulled out my computer, because I write better on the computer, and I started writing this story about a stressed out guy who takes a walk, and he comes upon a nativity scene, and he realizes that he can't relate to these people. And
Thankfully,
yeah.
You didn't stay stuck in the mud here or in the
Yeah.
snow.
Yeah.
It was coming down.
Yeah.
These individuals started to talk back to you.
Yes, as I was thinking of this scene, I thought, well, what would Mary say to me if she saw me standing there looking at her going, I don't believe this? And so I had each of the characters speak to me. What would they say? And she goes, this isn't real. This isn't what it's like. Let me be real. Let me tell you what's real. And then she began, if you will, the words that I wrote were, you know, this blue is not the blue that I wore. It's dirty from a long journey and it smells because I was on a mule's back. And it had
90 miles.
90 miles.
Full-term pregnancy.
And it has some blood on it because I birthed in it. And he goes, listen, you think I'm this guy that just wears brown and has this vacuous look, but I am a fighter, and I'm here to protect this child. And
He even spoke about the brown.
yes, because he wears brown, and he says, I wear brown for stealth. I wear brown because I blend into the background because I'm protecting this child and this family, and no one will get by me. And so all of a sudden, each character begins to come alive for me. And they became real. They're not that pristine look, but they're people. They're almost like the refugees you see on TV who are walking and dirty and desperate. And that was them. And then Jesus spoke and says, I am real too. I am not happy in this hay. It's prickly. And I'm a child, and I came here to experience what you experience, to laugh like you laughed, to cry like you cried, to skin my knee like you skinned your knee. I came here so that I could be real, so that when you go through it, you'll know that I did too.
Al, it's so beautiful. And this Christmas crisis of yours
Yes.
has become a Christmas tradition.
Yes.
I think already this Christmas,
Yes.
you have
My
done
dear-
this spoken word.
My dear friend Dave invites me back every
Every
year
year.
now. And it turned, actually, the story turned into a book. Somebody was at the concert that we did it at, and recommended it to a publisher, and they published it, Worthy Publishing, and they turned it into a little book now. And it's been there for a couple of years, and some churches are actually doing it as their Christmas play, something a little different.
It's so wonderful. So these characters that to you were so distant,
Yeah.
in that moment, in that wintry night, became dear.
Yes.
And now you're helping others take that journey too.
I hope so. I hope so.
It's so beautiful. I said, thank you so much for this gift to us this Christmas.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been a privilege.
It really is a treasure. And I was telling you that years ago, Tony Campolo, here at Christmas time,
Yeah.
we asked him, what would you wish our viewers? And he wished you a silent night. This is what can happen when we be still and know
Yeah.
God. Let him speak to our hearts and bring that relevance. You know, Al, I brought this little thing. It comes out every year. It's probably the least expensive Christmas card I've ever received. And actually, it was given to my son in a children's program. It says, in a single gift, God gave everything he had so that we would have everything we need.
It's perfect.
This is your
So true.
story.
Yes, it is. Yes, it
Thank you
is.
so much for coming all the way from Nashville.
Thank you for having
And
me.
someday, you can't talk names, I know, but
Yes, I can.
you probably could write a book about the service of Porter's Call.
I could. I just couldn't include names. You're right. But
I'll get you in that green room for a while.
yeah.
Thank you so much for spending these moments with us. And if you're wrestling like Al did, maybe you need to call our prayer line right now. We would love to process with you and just reflect with you. This still can be the most beautiful season of the year, no matter what you're facing, because of Emmanuel, God with us.